Добрый день, дорогие друзья.
Good morning, friends.
Очень важную секцию,
Today we have a very important session, emerging areas of consumer and investor rights protection, a more consumer-oriented approach for financial organizations. My name is Evgenia Lazareva. I will moderate today's session. I represent the All-Russian People's Front for Borrowers' Rights, and I hope you'll find my expertise useful, but today we have an exclusive panel. We'll have a 360-degree overview of consumer rights. Today we have offline and online representatives of the Russian Parliament. Anatoly Aksakov, who represents the Committee on Financial Markets. And we'll also have Pasquale Monafo, who is the head of International Relations of the Italian Committee and Exchange Commission. And he also represents the dedicated consumer protection group. And we also have Andrei Larkin, who is head of Ingostrak Insurance Company, and the head of consumer protection at the Central Bank of Russia. Please welcome Mikhail Mamuta. So we have a multifaceted overview of this topic today. So what are we going to talk about? So what are the issues that our consumers facing? The pandemic has been a huge challenge for both the financial institutions and consumers. What do we need to do to make sure that our consumers are safe and that they can protect their rights? What are their expectations? What is the vision of the business community for the future of consumer protection? So I'd like to give the floor first of all to our international speaker. We would like to tap into international experience because, you know, they've been working with financial markets for hundreds of years, and we had a pause for 70 years when we had communism. So the pandemic has definitely accelerated some of the processes in terms of consumer protection, and we are also streamlining our legislation. So new technology, new challenges, but regardless of what's happening here in Russia, we'd like to know what is happening in Europe. So I would like to give the floor to Pasquale Monafo. It's a great pleasure to give the first floor of this session to this wonderful expert. Over to you.
Pasquale?
Hello? Yeah. Siendo Breutра, спасибо за возможность.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to visit this conference.
It was understandable to some extent. I would very much like to learn Russian. It's something that is mentioned in the to-do list for my second life. I'm really honored to be part of this session and eager to bring you some insights about the European context and of the Italian market in particular. My name is Pasquale Monafo. I work in the International Relations Office at CONSOB, the Italian Financial Markets Authority, and I'm also the chair of the IOSCO Committee 8 on retail investors. Needed to say, the opinion expressed are only mine and do not necessarily represent the view of CONSOB. I'm not using slides today, conscious of the tight schedule of the conference. I will try to be as much clear and concise as possible. Some background documents are at the disposal of everyone interested in. Just to give you some of this background, as you know, Italy is part of the European Union, and as such, we share the structure of the financial market, the legislative framework, the challenges and the solution with the other countries. The European Commission aims to promote transparency and consumer protection in the area of retail financial services. Consumers should be able to make well-informed decisions about financial products and feel confident that they are adequately protected. The EU has taken a number of measures to promote a competitive and safe retail financial services market in the area. These include improved consumer protection rules for distance marketing of financial services and retail investment products. Broadly speaking, the so-called Markets in Financial Instruments Directive, in its first version of 2004, and the review of 2014, and the packaged retail investment and insurance-based products, the so-called PRIPS regulation, form the basis of the retail distribution in the EU. But we have no time to go in more depth today about this and the concepts like product governance, product intervention, and other measures in this regard. This said, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected all aspects of societies and economies around the world. Among other things, the pandemic has significantly influenced many financial consumers in terms of their access to and use of personal financial services. In turn, the pandemic has had a significant impact on policymakers and oversight authorities responsible for financial consumer protection and financial inclusion in terms of implementing and monitoring measures to protect and support financial consumers to weather the crisis. Since the onset of the pandemic, in line with the trend observed in recent years, the cases of abusive provision of investment service and abusive practices concerning violation of issuers' regulation, in particular abusive offer of financial products, have increased. So these unauthorized activities are carried out mainly on the web or by phone solicitation and conceals real scams. It is worth mentioning among the abusive offers conducted in 2020 in Italy, those concerning digital tokens issued in the context of a real or fake operation of so-called initial coin offering. In such cases, tokens are offered, allegedly issued through distributed ledger technology and denominated in cryptocurrency, which incorporates rights to receive periodic returns. Tokens with these features can be classified as investments of a financial nature, and then the offer of this would require the publication of the prospectus. The most frequent cases of abusive provision of investment services are represented by trading services offered to users through web platforms on contract for differences, having as underlying currencies stock market indices, commodities, and increasingly also cryptocurrencies. In the typical scheme, savers are invited to provide their personal data and to pay sums of money by wire transfers, credit cards, prepaid cards, to open accounts for trading securities on the online platform indicated by the abusive operator. The customer, entangled with the prospect of easy yields in the face of small initial investment, is then invited to pay greater and greater amounts of money and to operate on an account that promises consistent returns over time. Not infrequently, the user is also offered the possibility of using a so-called account manager for the management of the account or some software that operates in an automatic manner. To the investor is then denied the possibility of withdrawing all or part of the sum of money that are present in the account under the most diverse excuses. In addition to the abusive provision of online investment services, proposals for atypical financial investment are gaining ground, including those relating to alleged cryptocurrencies which promise completely out-of-market returns. For the recurring cases on which Consob has published warnings for investor concern, first, self-styled debt collection agency that offered the investor who is victim of fraud the possibility of obtaining a reimbursement of the sum invested, only to then subtract the further sum requested for the service. Second, abusive financial operators who improperly use the name and image of well-known person or influencers to induce investor on promises of easy earnings to adhere to investment proposal. And finally, the real scams attempts, mainly operated online, with which fictitious investment opportunities are offered in some way apparently connected to COVID-19, including investment in alleged virtual currency related to the spread of COVID infection, such as, for example, the Corona coin. The abusive operators are often fake companies, or in any case, companies that have or claim to be based in non-European countries, which are apparently located in European countries, but are in fact unreachable. These companies often misrepresent themselves by claiming that they are authorized to operate by European authorities. One of the main national legislative innovations that occurred during 2020 stems from a law which assigned Consob the power to order the internet connection service providers to block the website through which financial products without authorization are offered to the public. This power is also exercised against those who carry out advertising relating to an offer to the public of financial investment made in the absence of a prospectus. This power complements the one Consob obtained since July 2019 in relation to websites through which investment services are offered or illegally provided. Consob can enforce the block of the access to websites through which activities are performing in Italy, or which the illegal nature was ascertained, and so can guarantee greater effectiveness and timeliness of the law enforcement action, and therefore raise the levels of protection for investors. The rapid evolution of the context in which people are called to make economic and financial choices, and the further acceleration of the transformation processes brought about by the outbreak of the pandemic have reproposed the need to strengthen the investor self-protection tools. In particular, it appears crucial to raise Italians' financial knowledge and skills through educational programs that take into account the main factors that drive changes in the reference framework. First of all, sustainability and the digitalization of finance. In Italy, a national committee responsible for the national strategy on financial education was established in 2017, and Consob is a member of this. In 2020, Consob itself refined the educational offer for some segments of the population, differentiating content and language. In this perspective, various educational formats have been developed based on the approaches of edutainment, which combines training and entertainment, and so-called gamification, which promotes learning through simulation and gaming experience. The issue for more investor education is to the attention of the European Commission, which in its new action plan for capital markets union stresses that member states should promote measures in supporting financial education, in particular in relation to responsible long-term investment. Just a final remark before the end of my intervention. Two important complements of any strategy of protecting financial consumers in the investment service universe are a compliance handling system and an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. At Consob, we set up both in order to fulfill our responsibilities and to take into account any natural dysfunction along the way. Most of the complaints refer to bank intermediaries. The most frequently reported categories of violation are made up of anomalies in investment services and hypotheses of illegal activities. In 2020, we also saw a further consolidation of the role of our arbitrator for financial disputes as an out-of-court dispute resolution body between retail investors and intermediaries authorized to provide investment services. The increase in appeals received, as well as in compensation recognized, and more generally in the activities carried out as a whole, represent a signal in this sense. So I stop here. Sorry for any overrunning. I have to take question at the end of the session.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you so much.
Коллеги, Mikhail, возможно, у вас есть
Mikhail, colleagues, maybe you have any question to Pasquale that you'd like to ask, because what we heard from Pasquale echoes to what we have here today.
To be brief. So thanks a lot for your speech. It's very inspiring and very, I would say, useful for us here in Russia. Maybe one specific question: if you look at the Italian market, what kind of consumer risks, I mean financial consumer risks, you see the most important, let's say top three at this point in time?
The top risks here are fraud and scams, especially with using the digitalization it means that everyone can go to Italian customers from wherever around the world, just to propose some some financial investments. So this is the main risk at the moment, because every day we are just blocking internet sites, just proposing this kind of investment. So I would say this is on top of our ranking. So, and yes, also we are dealing with the cryptocurrencies as well. So everything which is not authorized for us, this could be a real problem.
Okay, thank you very much.
Это очень откликается. Спасибо большое.
That very much echoes what we have here. Thank you very much, Pasquale. And now let's look at
Среду защиты прав потребителей финансовых
consumer rights protection from the legislator's point of view.
Последняя сессия принесла очень много.
The latest session has yielded a lot of new bills. Over the past 5 to 7 years, consumer rights framework has been strengthened. A lot of bills have been passed, and we are very much fascinated by the efforts of the legislators in the past year. Here we have the new rules for the sale of financial products, the amendment of the retail investors law, and the law that gives the right to the consumers to refuse, to reject any additional add-on services. So there have been a lot of initiatives to counter any illegal practice. I'd like to give the floor to Anatoly Aksakov, who is the chairman of the Financial Market Committee at the State Duma, the lower chamber of the Russian Parliament. He will brief us on the latest trends and the latest initiatives. Where are we moving? What are you looking at right now? What are the key areas of focus for you? What's on your radar? Over to you.
Спасибо.
Thank you.
Во-первых, я хотел бы отметить, что происходящее на
What's happening in the EU markets, and I guess the same is happening in Asia and the US,
ситуацию в нашей стране.
looks very much similar to what we're seeing in Russia. And well, that's good. It means that we're not unique. It means that we are the same. And definitely the new trends, including in the digital market, have an influence on how professional markets perform and on how illegal markets perform. So we need to sort out what's happening between the legal participants, the bankers, securities professionals, insurance professionals, and we also need to wage a war against illegal operators. A lot has been done in terms of legislation. On the first item, we've passed a law to protect the rights of investors in the retail market. We believe it was a balanced decision. It actually echoed the response of the central bank. Very often, some of our professional participants used to missell and, just to push through some of the complex structured products there to amateurs, amateur investors who are laymen and don't know anything about it. So first of all, we need to help the market to develop, but on the other hand, we need to protect the rights of investors. So we delayed the transition time from April the 1st to October the 1st, and the professional participants drafted their standards, and the central bank provided the feedback. So we're expecting the final draft, and we'll do a pilot run for the non-qualified investors, as they are known. So these are retail investors who are not well versed in financial products. The central bank will now have the right to oblige for professional participants to buy back those complex products if information has not been disclosed in the proper way. And these financial participants need to disclose all the risks to provide maximum information to the clients on the instruments that are sold by them and sold to these investors. So by passing this law and following central banks' guidance, and once these requirements are published, I hope there will be no more issues with selling those legal products. And I hope it will be a win-win. The pace of growth, the number of clients that have been onboarded in the past year has been enormous, astounding, and would like to keep it because our economy needs long-term money, and these retail investors could bring long-term money for the economy, and that's really good for the professional participants because they have a bigger number of customers, and investors will now be more qualified. They will take more informed decisions, and they will get a high rate of return compared with the benefits, with the deposits offered by credit institutions. But now, on the second item, illegal operators and scamsters, we need to move faster. Just on the final day of our session, of our spring session, we passed a law to block the websites for illegal creditors, for those who install phishing plugins for financial pyramids or Ponzi schemes. You know, that bill sat in the Parliament for 2 years, and we should have done it faster. But I faced some resistance from even state agencies, surprisingly. But finally, it's been passed, and it will take effect, and the central bank will be able to block these websites. And we know that the central bank monitors the situation on a regular basis, and they will be able to block these malicious websites. I welcome the decision by the Bank of Russia to publish information on such malpractices and on any illegal, abusive practices and creditors that would help many of the investors. They will get acquainted with this information and take an informed decision whether they will work with these operators or not. And that also applies to the brokers that offer their services. Actually, the central bank has published this information. They disclosed information about 1,900 illegal entities and individuals who offer malicious services. And we need to circulate this information, distribute this as much as possible, so that people are in the loop and they are aware of these malicious actors. We have actually strengthened punishment, both in terms of criminal code and in the administrative code, for illegal and malicious actors. So we've been working along all the tracks to protect our people. We also hope that
например, кредитные организации
the
смогут
credit institutions themselves will be able to improve their efficiency,
капитала полученных
and they will improve their money laundering operations, anti-money laundering operations, AML, CFT, and the new platform, the Know Your Customer, KYC platform, will help many of the companies to deal with such cases.
свой compliance серьезный.
Well, in providing those financial services, they will no longer be in need to do their own compliance, and hence many of the financial institutions will be able to issue loans to SMEs and households faster, and hence reducing the burden and the relations would also be more agile and effective. So we are kind of like taking broad steps, and we think that the key issue of this interaction between the marketplace and the households and the individuals has been resolved, and we would only need to fine-tune these rules. Regarding the illegal, criminal players in the market, this is something where we need to really work more. We talked about some fake numbers that are used for those fake calls. Unfortunately, this is a widespread practice where criminals are using social engineering to take money from people, and by getting access to personal data of people, they're calling them to get the money. We are also doing something there. We are trying to really introduce some technological capacity and capabilities of the mobile operators to prevent such fake calls. Unfortunately, the legislation would not oblige mobile operators to do it right now, and then hence we prepared a draft law on that, and unfortunately it is still somewhere within the various institutions, kind of like still waiting for approval. And unfortunately, we cannot use it right now to protect the money of our people. I hope that the next composition of the parliament would be working more efficiently in trying to provide additional protection. Indeed, this law on blocking the fake numbers, this is something that we have been waiting for quite a long time. Anything which is against the frauds will receive our support. I hope that we're not going to wait another 2 years for the law to really protect us from fake numbers, and unfortunately we do see some waves of those fake calls, and you know that people within a few days managed to really collect almost 4,000 messages from criminals who were using fake calls and numbers, and those were put into the various databases. Of course, there's still an open question. We do have so many informal or illegal participants in the market. Maybe this is something for the Bank of Russia to think about. Thank you, Anatoly. We don't have too much time, but we do have 2 speakers, and we would like really to see what clients that we are caring about. Ingostrak, the insurance company, has had a long history behind, and in terms of providing insurance services to the population, I believe that you worked a lot to offer various service, and the insurance market is really a special area of a special sector of the financial market.
Было много вопросов.
Well, we have had questions about the third-party liability for motorists. Now we have various other forms of insurance and services to motorists. But there are various questions arising with mis-selling, with people not understanding the benefit of insurance and the essence of various products. How to introduce that knowledge into the population. You are working with the people also amidst the pandemic, and how do you plan to make people happy and long living? Yes, can you launch my presentation? Thank you.
Благодарю.
Thank you.
Мне кажется, что сейчас вот
I believe that we just mentioned the legal and regulatory initiatives to protect the consumer rights against fraud and against some malicious action.
сейчас немного поговорим.
Now I would like to talk more about how the companies need to do internally so that this dialogue, this debate about consumer rights protection would be less acute and more efficient, so that we can have some direct interaction between the provider of services and the consumer, and so that such relations would be a win-win situation. Well, the most recent International Insurance Forum 2021, there was an equation of gear formulated which describes the relations with the customers and really provides a look at the current situation with that. So there was some study done before the pandemic and during the pandemic to decide what is needed today. Convenience, that is, a customer needs to get a service from any company, a financial company, an insurance company, using a channel which is more convenient to such a customer. Digital, okay. The customer may choose to go digital and get the service. But that channel should be very comfortable so that the client can operate through the digital channel alone. This is the speed and the comfort of using this digital channel. However, you need to understand that the segmentation of clients is there. Some people prefer digital channels, others, and there's a larger segment of the consumer public that need to be consulted and that want to have some personal consultations with the agents or with the professionals in an office of a company. So for a client, it would be of principled importance, especially for complex products. We talked about mis-selling here as well, but actually it refers to the description of a service or product that is offered by a company to the client. There, the client needs to have very high-quality-based information before any decision on the commitment, and the client would have a lot of requests and questions about a product, and any company, including an insurance company, should really support and support the client and meet the demands and requests of the client. The product may be very diverse and very complex, but we need also to be able to explain to the client the essence of that product. Now, to understand where the customer is looking for comfort and convenience, where that client wants to interact and with whom, I believe that it is of principal importance to our company to build a very client-focused corporate culture. This is the basics. These are the fundamentals, the introduction of IT technologies, of digital technologies, so that this client focus and the new culture would happen and would work together. In Ingolstadt, in my company, we developed a very clear cycle of this client-centric culture, which really represents the evolving elements of that culture. Feedback comes first. That is what clients think about the products and our services. It's important for us not to stay within our brains and minds, but to be in the brains and minds of our clients. And we need to do some syndicated studies. We have post-sale studies. We need to really be looking at all these stages and phases of a transaction, whether we are right in that particular stage of phase. Then, after we have this feedback, we need to really come up with a single window for our clients, whether it is about complaints or rather praises that we receive on our services. But most importantly, that feedback from the clients, complaints, advice or praise, they should really be heard. And based on such a feedback, we need to take very specific action to change systems, approaches, product lines. This is a very principled point, because sometimes there is a complaint and we more or less tell the clients that we'll come back to you, but there's no coming back in many cases. So the single window opportunity for our clients, it would become our competitive advantage. This feedback should also be part of the analytical blocks in the company, where all such links are demonstrated. In Ingolstadt, we understand and we know what happened during the past week. If we had some complaints from clients, we would be able to establish whether it was some technological fault or something else. We also have the feedback from our call centers, and we have very detailed metrics to establish and assess the quality of our services to clients. And this is information really about the way our clients see our services. However, the customer-centric corporate culture is also about forming and establishing some user experience and consumer paths, if you like, so to see what users want from our products, why this or that product is comfortable or not, and we are doing that for our main lines of activity, because we hope that this way we would be able to offer the client what that client wants rather than what we want. So it's like an end-to-end action plan. As soon as you have the feedback and then you have the client paths, then you develop initiatives or of changes. They are prioritized and they are implemented in systems and teams and in the practices of sales. It is all based on the user experience. And the most important story there, as the outcome of such initiatives, would be information about the way such initiatives were implemented within the corporation. These 6 elements actually establish your corporate culture. When the personnel realizes that we're going from this whole cycle, and then the employees start to come up with proposals based on their personal experience with communicating with the customers and users. And this makes our work better. And as a result, we have a good normal dialogue between the client and the company. They are more or less on the same slate, if you like, and we actually know what the clients want, and we receive that knowledge about the wishes of the client from the minds and the brains of the client. So I think that this is about client focus. Before Mikhail would tell us more about behavior-based supervision, which is also very interesting, I would like to ask you a question. Which of the initiatives using your model is, in your opinion, the most popular for your client? So in your company, for example, an employee reading about a feedback from a client and learning the corporate culture actually came up with a proposal which was implemented by the company and which became very important. About the implementations, we have lots of those initiatives and ideas implemented all the time. But two things. To me, it is important to have the feedback, and it is already working. We already see the real wishes of our clients, and also CGMs. This is what we need, and we are looking not at the way you can really establish a process, a service from the point of view of technologies, but we do really try to see how this is going to be convenient to our clients. And we're talking about some not immediate results, but about some prospects. So, all the best with that. And now we come to probably the main thing. Mikhail, you will have to really answer for all of us. And of course, you are representing here the service for the protection of the rights of consumers of financial services. And the emergence of that service was really very important for the whole of the financial market. And this is when the whole protection effort and business started to develop. You are reacting to misselling. You do see the most relevant issues, and I think that your service is one step ahead because you are collecting information and you have the experience with behavior-based supervision and you have the initiatives. And I think that in your history, much has changed. But the question is where we are going and how are we going to meet the future challenges? Because there is still this challenge of misselling. There is also consulting in the social media, but customers do want to be protected. What are the steps taken by the Bank of Russia? And in your view, in the view of the Bank of Russia, what would be the future development of the consumer rights protection there? Now, in this remaining time that we are left with, I will try to react to what my colleagues mentioned and also provide some comments on the current status in really broad sketches, I would say, and what do we do and where we are focusing on. Indeed, you were right in saying that in recent years we have seen, on top of the classical supervision models and financial stability models, we have seen the emergence of a new type of supervision which is based on the analysis of behavior, where we try to really establish any violation of the rights of consumers of financial services, but also we analyze the potential risks and threats because we are trying to improve the business processes, policies and practices by removing the inherent causes of potential problems. My colleague said that all companies that are customer-focused are trying to do that by themselves. They are really assessing the usefulness of their products and they are improving their products based on their feedback. This is a classical approach, but it is also a good one, which helps company to meet the demands of the consumer. We are thankful to such companies, and we hope that this is going to be a widespread practice in the market. But we also need to create and provide some incentives from the regulator for the companies to do so and to move together there. And I think that together with the legislator, together with the market and SROs and us as regulator, we can do a lot there. I would like to thank Anatoly actually for our fruitful cooperation. Indeed, we have seen a lot of laws being adopted introduced during the last session of our parliament to ensure the protection of the consumer rights. I not only mentioned many of those, but let me comment on how we are going to use such laws based on our analysis of the issues, and such analysis would also help improve our legislation. This is not something that we're taking, out of the blue, but this is based on the analysis of the complaints and our review of the social media and other feedback. So issue number one, the offering to the customer of an inadequate product or a harmful product to such a customer. And this is usually the mis-selling practice. Say, a person really wants to buy sausages, but the person is sold not sausages but cheese, and actually a rotten piece of cheese. And the seller is claiming that really it is a sausage, not a cheese, but you just don't see that. Now, a couple of years ago, when we started to fight this practice of mis-selling, we really received new tools of stopping mis-selling. That is the buyback requirement that was supported by the Parliament, and since June 11, we do have this practice of forcing the seller to buy back any product that is not to the liking or is not comfortable to the user, to the customer. We now have very specialized, unified rules of sales and rules of interaction between the seller and the buyer to prevent the risk of misinformation. I think in the near term we're going to do that, and I'm talking about some implementation time of about 1 year. We need to see some systemic improvement with the problem of mis-selling. However, this very rough practice of mis-selling would be replaced by a more fine-tuned instrument of lodging. And we are going to fight that again using, say, product governance, something that we discussed here in the studios about an hour ago. And nudging really is about improving the financial literacy and knowledge of customers. This is important, and we also need to have the institutions to improve their ethics. We already issued a number of recommendations to improve the corporate ethics and standards so that the companies would know that the satisfaction of their clients would be the most important KPI, and any breaches and violations of such ethical rules would be really harmful to the directors and managers of companies. Now, secondly, we of course need to make sure that a person would be able to refuse any unnecessary service when receiving some product. Together with the Parliament, we actually decided on more or less end-to-end cooling period. If you, for example, before were able to say no to any voluntary insurance, and now when you were getting a loan, but now you can actually refuse any other service like telemedical services or any other support services, auxiliary services, etc. It is important for I'm not saying that those services are not important, but it is important for the consumer to really get this service with much knowledge. And so that it is not kind of be a mandatory package of services when you are getting a loan. Now, then if the institution which was providing a loan would not react to a refusal of the customer from such services, then the association of those institutions would be able to do so and to make the institution to to cancel those services, etc. And then, of course, the third point is about the frauds over the internet. 87% of the population of consumers of financial services are using the digital channel as their core channel. So the pandemic was also a strong driver to put people into the digital domain, but risks there are growing. Anatoly mentioned that we are now able to block out of court any websites. But please remember, last year, the Bank of Russia sent out over 7,100 of the requests to block various sites that were phishing, that were offering illegal investment opportunities, etc. So we are there to help people to save money, to avoid any involuntary mistakes. And looking forward, since we need to be really looking forward, we have one important initiative which is still left, and hopefully during the next session of Parliament we would really provide that. This is the right to be heard, so that the financial institutions would be obliged to reply on the claims and requests of the consumer before that claim goes to the regulator. The regulators have to reply to the consumers, and the financial institutions are not obliged yet to do that. So the person cannot exercise his or her most important right to be heard. And because of that, we have the market overloaded with some negative perceptions. And of course, much needs to be done and responded. And hopefully, in this coming fall, we're going to see a solution of that. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an exciting session. We've learned so much new, and we now know